Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Brokers Open Podcast. I'm Dr. Ben Spears, the Doctor of Flow. I am here as usual with the big guy himself, Matt Vi. What's up, Matt?
I'm doing fantastic, Ben. How are
I'm
you?
doing great.
What's up? Is the same as usual. We got a great guest. Excited to talk to him.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go ahead and bring him on. We have the founder of C&J Coaching, Joe Kavanagh. How you doing, Joe?
Doing fabulous, Ben. Thank you for asking, and thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Appreciate
we're
it.
super grateful that you're here, guys.
Absolutely.
Before we get started, make sure if you're watching this, hit that thumbs up button, and give us a subscribe. So, Joe, you have a very we talked a little bit before, just like we always do with all of our guests, a little bit before the show, and you have a really cool purpose in what you do, and I would love for you to share that. What tell me a little bit about C&J coaching.
Yes, Ben. And Matt, I want to say hi to you as well, in case I didn't already. Yes, I have been in real estate all of my adult life and been in sales. I am at a point now where I have decided I want to give back and I want to help others become more successful at what they do. And between my wife and I, we had a lot of discussions on this, and we decided the best way to do that was to start our coaching company so that we can coach, train, and mentor those who want to become more successful at what they do.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And, Matt and I talk all the time about, he just has, decades of experience in sales, decades of experience in real estate. And, when you and I spoke, because I had the luxury of speaking to you first, when you and I spoke, you said, hey, I have, 40 plus years of history and experience in sales with 95% of those excuse me, 95% of those being in real estate. It just got me thinking this is going to be the easiest podcast I've ever done because here I've got two people who've been in real estate forever. I can just like sit back, cross my arms, and say, "Hey guys, start talking about sales and real estate," because that's going to help our agents. But tell us a little bit about your history. How did you get into sales? How did you get into real estate? And what do you love about it? After that.
Wow, that's a
It
loaded
is.
question, and that can be a short answer or a couple of days answer.
That's right.
Um, my problem was in my 20s, I worked at a job, like I suppose a lot of people, most
Mhm.
people,
Right.
and I realized that I hated being told when I had to be at work, when I could punch out, where I had to go, how long it was going to take, and I can't go home until the job's done. The frustration was built up over years, and I loved my job. I was driving tractor trailers and working for a big moving company, and got paid to see a lot of the country, quite frankly. But I was young and single at the time, and when you settle down, you're going to have a family and whatnot. You want to be around for everything, and I realized that I just couldn't stand working for other people.
Mhm.
So I quit my job, and we had a 1 year old, a 10-month-old baby. We had just bought our first home a year before that, and I quit and bought a totally different business in another state. We moved from Massachusetts to Maine and bought a campground because we love to camp. So I thought, well, we'll figure this out. Other people did,
Right.
and had that. And quite frankly, I really, really enjoyed it. My wife at the time, not so much. So eventually we were able to sell that, and fortunately sold it to the town because they didn't have a public beach access in town, and they have 7 lakes in that town.
Oh
Now
wow.
in Maine, that you think that's everybody would have a beach. So we sold it to them. They're running it as a park and a campground and a town beach, and we put a clause in there that it can never be developed. So I feel really good about that. So then the next thing was another adventure. I decided to buy a Christmas tree farm. And
Nice.
my broker, my real estate broker I had worked with up there, she says, God, you're good at selling things. You need to come work for me. And she had a Century 21 brokerage. So knowing that Christmas tree sales is a pretty much a seasonal business, I said, yeah, I need something to do the rest of the year. And I loved it. I was good at it. And I just had a knack for it, for connecting with people.
Right.
So that got me started. And as time went on, we went through a recession, stopped making money in real estate, as Matt can easily identify with.
Right.
And fortunately, I had a friend up there who owned an appraisal company, and there was a refi boom going on. So he says, "Hey, look, I need somebody with real estate experience. Would you come work for me?" So back then, you only had to take a 3 or 4 day course and pass a test, and you had your license. So I said, "Sure, let's do it." And that provided a more steady paycheck. So I focused on that. 3 years later, after our parents passed away, my wife wanted to move south. So we ended up in Charleston, South Carolina. And good Lord, had I known it was going to be this great, I would have moved here sooner.
Right.
So got here at the right time in the mid 90s before
Oh,
everything
wow.
boomed.
Yep.
And it's been heaven ever since. And so I decided that I'm going to open up both avenues, appraisals and real estate sales, and whichever one takes off, I'm going to focus on. Well, the appraisal side took off because we were in a bit of a slow market then. And so that's how I got my appraisal company going. And then after I kept my license, my real estate license, and I would get 3 or 4 deals a year that would fall into my lap, a friend or associate or an estate
Right.
sale, whatever. So I'd get those listings. And that was my spending money, my vacation money. After many years of it, I decided I wanted to get back into sales because I was reaching retirement age and I wanted more flexibility to travel. And I felt real estate sales gave that to me versus appraisals where you have to physically be there every day. And that's when I got back into sales 6 years ago. So that's the shortest story I can give you. How's that?
I love it. I love it. Well, that's so you've got me beat by about 15 years. I don't normally say that with people. So I've been in about 25 years. And so normally when I'm talking real estate with people, a lot of people, 20 years, 25, 30 years, they're kind of right in that range. You're up there with a realtor emeritus, right? You probably don't have, you don't have to pay your dues anymore, right?
I asked about that. I still got another 5 years to go because I changed states.
Oh, I got you. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Well,
So
that's still a heck of an accomplishment. Congratulations of all the careers to be in. Real estate is not an easy one, and for you to have lasted this long is huge. Now, you also so there's something else that you do that is really important with all of this. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that, right? So we're huge fans of bank code,
Huge.
right? So we love that, and we've got some background with it, and we enjoy and appreciate understanding the personality of things. You said something that's really brilliant, right? About if there's a problem or an issue with somebody, it's not the person, right? I'll let you get into all of that, but from a big picture standpoint, how has bank code really led into what it is that you're doing already, and how does it help you and the people that you're helping?
great question, Matt. Thank you. So got back into real estate sales, teamed up with a really great local company, and they had excellent marketing. And within the first year and a half or two, I was doing pretty good and I was successful. I was considered successful, one of the top agents in the company, but I wasn't happy. I was selling about $4 million a year. Now that's good income. That's pushing that is six-figure income. However, I knew I could do better, and I saw people do better, and I just didn't know. I was frustrated. And as luck would have it, or as fate would have it, I would say,
Right.
I went to a National Achievers Conference, and they had many speakers there. And this one lady got up and started talking about this sales tool, and it's an acronym, and it's called BANK, which I'll explain in a moment. So, sitting there listening to her, my wife, who is a former actress and loves languages, heard her say a couple of things, and all of a sudden, my wife, who's not an action taker, on real quickly, she just jumped up and says, "We're signing up to learn more about this." I'm like, "You don't even know what it is yet." She goes, I already know I'm in. And so I'm hearing it and thinking, okay, this is a sales tool, so I can implement it into my real estate just to see what happens. So we both joined and learned more, went to a 2 day seminar on it, and fell in love with it. And I said, man, if this really works, this is going to change the game.
Mhm.
So we signed up to become trainers because they're a growing company. And by the way, if people want to, we are looking to expand our team. So I'll just put that in there.
Mhm.
However, once we started learning more and more about it, it took me a while. It's like learning a new language. You're afraid to use it at first in case you mess up. So I was very hesitant. And after about 7 months, my wife said, "Look, are you going to do this or not?" And I said, "Yeah, I really need to." She says, "You're going out on an appointment today. Don't come home unless you implement the system in your appointment." So I forced myself to do it. And I found out later that the couple said they decided to work with me because I took time to understand them, which you don't typically hear on sales calls.
Absolutely. Yeah,
That was a
absolutely.
$940,000 listing, and I sold it. So I knew there was something to this.
Mhm.
Fast forward a bit, I doubled actually reversed my numbers. I had sold 3.8 that year, and then I focused on trying to double that. Well, the next year I actually reversed the numbers. I sold 8.3, and I stayed that successful at it. And the reason behind it is because I just took time to implement the system and get to know people.
Yeah.
It was that easy.
Yeah, I love.
Yeah, we
Go ahead, Matt.
so we talk all the time about the importance of understanding your clients, right? Knowing what their needs are and really going in and discovering and understanding what it is that they're trying to accomplish. Man, what better way of doing that than starting with who they are, right? So
Yes.
you start with who they are, and then as you ask questions, it gives you a great lens to look through and understand the perspective of what it is that they're really telling you, right?
Yes. And Matt, if I may say so, I went back and tracked my numbers. And prior to implementing this system, just to show you how I was pretty successful, the typical closing ratio on a first appointment for a listing is around 20% in real estate. I was already closing at 37%, and I was a realtor of distinction. In less than a year after implementing bank into it, I jumped from 37% up to 86%
Wow.
closing ratio.
Wow. On first appointment.
Yes. Yes, that was incredible. When I sat and looked at that, I said, I knew I was doing better, but I didn't realize it was that better. And if I may continue on that, the other pitch that they gave in this tool, this methodology, was you can close more sales in less time.
Mhm.
So I wanted to put that to the test so that we could start to work and develop our coaching business. So I purposely, the following year, I worked up 50% of the time, give or take a little. I tracked the best I could. And not only did I sell as much, I actually sold more real estate.
Wow.
Yeah, I
So that's when I was sold.
yeah, and I
And that gave me time back to spend with my beautiful wife and my family, time to travel, do the things I want to do. I mean, there's more to life than just working, and especially real estate agents. I think you know that
Oh yeah.
because most of us they think they're available 24/7.
yeah, and that brings me to my next question because I have to imagine if I'm an agent in your office, of course I'm looking at you even when just like you said when you were doing well before, but when things just start to double, especially like over a year, that's when you really start looking and saying like, all right, what in the world is it that this guy's doing? And I would love, I'd love to, because it's going to be a great segue into tell us what it is, right? Matt and I know, but our
Sure.
listeners may not. But also,
Yeah.
we're going to get to if someone reaches out to you, like how is it that you're helping them implement these systems, that kind of thing. But just going back in time just a little bit, those agents when they, in your office, when they saw you just crushing it, did you have a lot of people come up and say, "What is this bank thing?" Or, "What in the world are you doing? Please share your secret."
Not only that, but the owner of the company, when I first found out about it, we brought it to him to talk about it, see if, hey, we should get the agents involved in this. And I'm not going to lie, he was a hardcore disc man.
Mhm.
And he just said, no, we're fine with what we have. We like using that. So I said, okay, fine. So I just went about, did my thing. Well, after about a year and a half, year and I think it was 8 months, he finally says, hey, I need to have you and Cindy come in and have a talk with me. I got to see what's going on here.
Mhm.
So after we talked and I explained it all to him, he said, I want you to come in and train the agents. So he hired us to come and train the agents. And the numbers, and I have this on my LinkedIn page. He has a little video clip that he did for me. In less than a year, Their company-wide conversion rate went from 32% to 62%. Not only that, year over year, the volume of real estate sold was up $50 million
I bet. I
over the
bet.
previous
Wow.
year.
Yeah.
And so we have a recurring contract with that company.
Yeah.
So that's a huge win right there.
Yeah, that's massive. The thing that stuck out with me, let's without without giving anybody a hard time about their program, okay? Because there's a lot of different personality
Yeah.
programs out there, right? Okay, simplicity of use is huge. Okay, that's number one, and number two, the big thing that I heard whenever we first started looking for an option, because I've got some background, I understand personality profiling pretty well, and did some training on it, and all that kind of stuff, and I liked what I did. But there was something that came up in a conversation when I heard bank code that really made a difference to me. And I say it anytime I talk about this because it's really important for people to lean into this component. It talks about the stress code, okay, which is the third. You're going to give the acronym for what bank actually means in just a minute. I know you mentioned that before, but that third one really makes a difference, and that's the stress code of things. So, can you kind of describe what bank actually means for us really quick, and then talk about that stress code, if you don't mind?
No, I'm happy to. Thank you for asking. So BANK, it stands for blueprint, action, nurturing, and knowledge. Those are the four primary categories within your personality, within anybody's personality. So the blueprint, these people are typically very conservatively dressed. They can be cool to approach. They're very systematic. They have to plan things out. They typically have schedules for their schedules. They're risk adverse, definitely risk adverse. They are budget oriented, and we use an analogy of a box, and they like to live inside the box and follow all the rules. Then you have the A, which is action. These people are on fire. They're like firecrackers that go off in your hand. It's like they drink Red Bull for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They're the movers or shakers and millionaire makers. They make decisions instantly. It's like cut to the chase. How am I going to make money in this deal? And once they do, we're in. We don't need the details. It's like you jump off the cliff and you build a parachute on the way down, sort of thing. And I like to say it's ready, fire, aim for an action. So that's your action. Then we change to the nurturing. Now, the nurturing, these are your sunshine and sunflowers and golden honey and all that. And oh, the actions I forgot to tell you. The box. What box? I don't even want to know about a box. I'm gonna blow it up if you put me in a box.
Right.
The nurturing people with the box, they're the ones who recycle and repurpose the box.
Right.
So those are your loving, your kind-hearted people. They love to support others. They're into charities. You often find them working for nonprofits, and integrity is great with them. They want good personal relationships, so they've got to trust you and love you before they want to do business with you. Then the last one is the knowledge. Now, the knowledge, they typically look at themselves as the smartest people in the room. So they talk about the box. They engineered the box. Without us, you wouldn't have a box. And they like the data and the research and all that. So those are your four basic types. Okay. Now, we're not one type, we're a combination of all four.
Absolutely.
It just depends on the degree of strength of each one. So to get to your question, Matt, when we do code someone, and by the way, this takes less than 90 seconds for those that want to know. And I can probably count on one hand how many people it took longer than that. But what that does, and
that would be your knowledge person, by the way.
thank you. Thank you. Yes, the knowledge person has the hardest time typically because they don't want to be wrong.
Right.
And they can get into analysis paralysis
Absolutely.
in their own head. So when you do find out their code, you can quickly look at it and see the card that's in the third position is typically where somebody goes when they get into stress. So just an example, my code is action first. I'm big action, big opportunity guy, closely followed by my nurturing. That's why I have this coaching program so I can help others be successful like I am. And then my third is knowledge. So if I get stressed about something, selling a house, buying an expensive automobile, I'm going to research that and make sure I'm not making a mistake. And the blueprint, if in my case, is last, because planning, I don't plan anything.
Right.
I wing it. So,
Right.
and everybody's different, just so you know. But what really helps with this too, once you know somebody's personality tendencies, is, and especially when you go on an appointment in real estate, a lot of people are stressed even though they don't show it.
Absolutely.
It's the biggest transaction of their lives.
Absolutely.
So by recognizing that and then communicating with them in the way they want to be heard, that's the key.
Yeah.
And that's the value of what this does for you.
Yeah, and I have to bring up.
That makes sense.
Oh, go ahead, Joe.
No, I was just saying, does that make
Yeah,
sense?
that makes absolutely perfect sense. And I always bring this up. Honestly, I completely forgot about it, which only goes to show, that much more you guys kind of have in common. When we first talked, Joe, I know that I had told you that Matt taught basically personality profiling to the criminal investigation of the IRS before, right? And so the so
Uh-oh.
the two of you again, it's really cool having both of you on these, in this conversation, specifically when we're talking about personalities. So if we look at it and say, okay, now we know the bank acronym, right, and we know what each of those stands for, right? We've discussed the stress code. We know that all of us are a little bit of a combination between of all four. Now let's say, because always try and put myself in the eyes and ears and the heads of our listeners. Now let's say I'm an agent and I want to get more listings, and I've just heard this guy say that on first appointments at listings, 86%. Right, I walk out of there and that listing is mine. Did you just go in and say, hey, really quick, let me let me crack your code? And they're like, what more do you talk about cracking my code? Give me just some action steps of how do you even bring this up in conversation in a listing appointment to where it doesn't come across like maybe they know that you're taking a look deeper into their personality.
Yep. Let me blow your mind a little bit.
I'm ready.
There's more to it than that. We actually have a Google link that we can go and check out somebody's social media posts before we meet them.
Mhm.
And we have an AI that we put it in there and it'll tell us in nanoseconds what their personality trait is, what their tendencies are. So you have that as a tool. When I converse with them before the appointment, typically by email or text, depending on how they respond, I get some ideas. But to answer your question, it is that simple. When we walk in, now we went to a disc training at our office because my boss at the time, or the owner, was heavily into that. And it was a Tony Robbins trainer that was teaching us this. So I asked him, I says, when you go into a home, this is where I couldn't see the benefit of this. You go into a home,
Right.
how are you going to figure out who these people are when you have 5 minutes? Because you typically go in, you say, show me a beautiful home. And then you sit down at the dining room table and get into it. And he had to think about that for a minute. He says, I suppose the best method would be mirror and match. I'm like, okay, so you're still guessing.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a 1 in 24 chance of guessing correctly, just
Right.
so you know.
Right.
I was very happy with that answer because now I know I was on the right track.
Mm-hmm.
So I do. I go in, I say, show me a beautiful home. I can relax. I can enjoy. I can converse with them. I don't have to worry about studying them. We sit down at the table, and there's a couple of different ways of doing it. And one way I will give you is I'll say, Ben and Matt, hey, before we get started, I'd like to do things a little bit different and have some fun at the same time. You up for that?
Of course.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, great. I wanted you to look at these 4 cards that I have in my hand, and I show them the 4 cards. Each of these cards has a set of values on them. I want you to look at all the values on all 4 cards, then sort the cards in order of which one sounds most like you on top, progressively down to the one that sounds least like you on the bottom. This is going to help me to be a great agent for you, and it's going to save us both some time. And that's it. I hand them to them. They sort them through. They look at them. They go through the cards and they hand them back to me. Now I know who they are.
Yep.
So if the
And what
action
stress
is
was
the
about.
top card, the red card, I know they don't want all the details and all the history of the market and what's going on. They just want to know how much you can list my house for, how good are you, how are you going to sell it. Versus you get somebody that's a high knowledge or even a high blueprint, the ones that plan and the ones that have to have the data. Now I've got my 3 years of past history in the market. I've got all my analysis and charts and graphs of where the market is, where it's expected to go, what the interest rates are doing, how it can affect their price, how it's going to affect the buyers that are coming in,
Yep.
and how it'll affect whether it appraises or not. I have that benefit going for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how all you do is you change the way you present the information to somebody based on their personality type, not mine. Because just a little background on that. I used to go and talk to people and be in high action, all excited and all this. And they'd say, yeah, I think we're going to work with you. So I was like, great. And here's what else I've done. And I won this award and I do this and I sold this much last year. And they start to get a little back offish and they say, you know what, let's just sleep on it to make sure. And then, of course, you call them up the next day and they've either ghosted you or they say, well, sorry, we signed with ABC
Absolutely.
Realty.
Yep.
And you can't figure out why. Well, I talked myself right in and right out of it because I wasn't communicating in their personality style.
Absolutely.
And they don't agree. So you don't have to, but the ultimate is to match. They want to be heard and they want to be understood. And the Charlie Group says 82% of people will do business with people that are like them, no matter what they're selling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree with that. And and again, I want to be respectful of your time. We're coming up here on our 30-minute window here. But Matt, before I ask him, how people get in touch with him, because that's really what I want to get to. Do you have any other questions, or we could talk to him for days?
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. And I love the information that he's sharing. I think a big point that he made that can't be overstated is once you know the personality and you know how to talk to them, it also tells you how to deal with yourself in that conversation with them. So if you know who you are and now you know who they are, it allows you to close that gap in the conversation or in the communication so that the information going back and forth between you has as little friction as possible so that both parties can absorb it the way that they want to absorb it. And it's key to understand this isn't about manipulation.
Of course.
It's key to understand that this is about truly being able to share what it is that you do and how you do it in a way that is effective with them so that they can truly understand what they're getting. And so you knowing who you are, them knowing who they are, and both of you being able to not have the friction in that conversation, not hit that stress code. That's the part that sticks with me. Not tripping over that stress code. That card number 3 on that listing appointment, man, I want to make sure I pay super close attention to that one whenever I'm talking to people. Right, Joe?
And there's one thing about that too that I didn't say. When they're in that stress code and you recognize it, the key is to match them there. And then eventually, once you learn the system, you can gradually talk them down so that they're in their primary code and they can make much clearer decisions.
Love that.
And as far as getting along with people, the line I like to use, my tagline is, remember, it's not personal, it's personality.
Right.
That's so good. That's so good. I'm probably going to end up saying that one more time in my life, Joe. Just so you know, because I just think I love that. Joe, why don't you tell everybody? If someone says, "Hey, I'm picking up what this guy's putting down," and they want to learn more about C&J coaching, or they just want to meet a really nice person who can add a tremendous amount of value to their life, please tell our listeners how can they get in touch with you. Any links that you share, of course, we'll put those in the description below. But I'll leave it up to you.
Great, thanks. It's candjcoaching@gmail.com is the easiest, and that stands for Cindy and Joe. My wife and I, we work together. We actually work with a larger team too. You can also reach out to me directly on my mobile number, and that's 843-345-8506. And of course, you're going to share my LinkedIn page and my Facebook page and all that. I don't have a website. I do this organically, for lack of a better term. And it's been said I should develop one, and I probably will. But again, I'm not a planner. So I don't know if I'll ever get to it.
Um,
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it so much, Joe. You've been absolutely amazing to talk to. All of our listeners out there, if you're listening to this on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Deezer, make sure you hit that follow button. If you're watching us on YouTube, what's up? We're super excited that you're here. Make sure you hit that red subscribe button. And other than that, Matt, bring on amazing guests, just like Joe, because Brokers Open Podcast is not just about open houses.
it's about open minds. Thanks, everybody.
I'll talk to you soon.